The winning blueprint presents.
Draft Zone.
Welcome to the Draft Zone. I'm your host, Lou. Thank you for joining me. This is the 2013 NFL Draft Wrap-Up. On this segment, what I do is break down the NFL Draft for every single team in the National Football League, talk about their picks, what they were able to accomplish in the draft, grade out their picks, and it's not all about the players here. We're talking about the player itself, of course, and where they were selected, how they will be able to impact this current team in the 2013 season and beyond. We're talking about the Seattle Seahawks today, and so we'll be looking at their draft after having that blockbuster trade in the offseason to get Percy Harvin. They didn't own a first-round pick, so what they did after the first round was going to be vital in helping the Seahawks take that next step. So we'll look at the Seahawks draft, look at all the players selected, how they were selected, and the impact that they could have in the upcoming season and beyond. Grade them out using our baseball grading scale: single, double, triple, home run. There are no strikeouts in the draft. Again, you can never tell how these players are going to pan out, and each team's opinion on players vary. So one team might have a first-round grade on a player. Another team might have a fourth-round grade on that same player. You can never tell if a team reached for a guy or not. So there's no strikeouts here. Only single, doubles, and triples, and the occasional home run. So we'll look at the draft, break it down, get an aggregate score after we tally up all of the individual scores for each pick, come out with a overall grade for the Seattle Seahawks in this draft, and that will be essentially the wrap-up for the Seattle Seahawks. So without any further ado, I got my draft board behind me, have my pointer. Let's get to work. So looking at the Seattle Seahawks and their draft, you look at their needs. And for the Seahawks, it's funny that we're talking about needs when talking about the Seattle Seahawks, because this is a really good football team. And so you see all these needs up here, but they're not necessarily needs, more so wants. The Seahawks don't need a receiver. They would want a receiver. They don't have a number one on their team. They just have a bunch of twos and threes. Percy Harvin, not a number one. You never want your number one receiver to be an all-purpose guy. Percy Harvin can run it out of the backfield. He can return kickoffs. He's a receiver in the slot. You never want your number one receiver to be an all-purpose guy because they get injured. And you don't want to mortgage your future on a number one guy that's running back punts, running the football out of the backfield, taking a lot of shots. You don't want your number one guy to be that guy. So it'd be nice if the Seahawks got a number one legit receiver, but they don't have to. Their offense is fine the way it is. You look at offensive line, their offensive line is fine. They could use more depth. You look at cornerback. They got two of the best cornerbacks in the game. So, yeah, they lose Trufant. They need a slot guy, but it's not a definite need. Again, quarterback. You lose Matt Flynn in the trade with the Raiders. You need a backup. So, yeah, quarterback is a need, but is it really? So then you look at defensive line and linebacker. Again, same. You have things there that are very good. You just want more. So it's a want more so than a need for the Seattle Seahawks. Let's get to the draft board. Round, pick, player, position, school. We'll go over each one, grade them out. We start in the second round. Keep in mind, Seattle does not own a first-round pick via the Percy Harvin trade. So you're starting in round 2, pick 62. This is from Baltimore. You got this pick from the Ravens. Christine Michael, running back, Texas A&M. To me, because of the injury to Lattimore, Christine Michael, best back in this draft. So right there, for me, this is a great pick for the Seattle Seahawks because with Lattimore healthy, Lattimore is the best back in this draft, hands down. But with Lattimore going down, Christine Michael, for me, best running back in this draft. He's got all the tools. He doesn't have top end speed. He's not a 4.4 40 guy, but his body type is so big. He's so physical. Just to give you an idea of how talented and athletically gifted this guy is. At the combine, he participated in 7 events, and that's the maximum amount of events you can participate at the combine for running backs. He participated in 7 events. In 5 out of the 7, he was one of the top performers. So we're talking about top 3 in his class, at his position, at the combine in 5 out of 7 events. This guy is athletically gifted. Can run, is extremely physical and strong. Maybe lacks a little bit of the lateral movement you would like in the back, but again, he's so big that that's to be expected. Everyone's not as light on their feet, but this guy can run. He's powerful, and he can make you miss. He's not afraid to block in the passing game. Probably isn't a natural catcher of the football, but again, very talented back. I love Christine Michael. I watched a lot of A&M film because last year I was looking at Tannehill as a quarterback prospect. I like Ryan Swope. I was keeping my eye on him as well. And while I was doing so, I saw a lot of Christine Michael. And I tell you what, he shared the backfield with Cyrus Gray, who was drafted by the Kansas City Chiefs last year. It was his backfield in 2012. He got into the doghouse of Kevin Sumlin. Really never got to show what he could do. And so he's a hidden gem. And that's why the Seahawks were able to uncover him at 62. I love this pick. I think it's a great value here. The only reason this isn't a home run off the field issues, because this guy had trouble. It's a reason why he was in the doghouse at A&M under Kevin Sumlin. Off the field issues. And so if you get this guy to play at his full potential, you got yourself a barn burner here. And I tell you what, you've already got beast mode. I really like Turbin. Add Christine Michael to the mix. You've probably got the best stable of backs in the league. Probably. Some would argue because you don't have Adrian Peterson there that you can't have the best. But with those 3, if this guy is what I think he can be in this league, you might have the best backfield in all of the National Football League. That's a triple for me. Christine Michael at pick 62 in the 2nd round, running back out of Texas A&M. We go to the 3rd round. Pick 87, Jordan Hill, defensive tackle out of Penn State. For me, solid pick. He's a try-hard guy. He's going to give you everything he's got. Is he the most athletic? No. Is he the most strong? No. But what he is going to do is have that motor running at 100% all the time. He's a short guy. We're talking about 6'1", 6'2". That's not the ideal height you're looking for at defensive tackle. So that is a deficiency. But he turns that deficiency into a strength when he gets under the pad level of these big offensive Goliath linemen. So you get a 6'6" guard inside. This guy's 6'1", 6'2". He gets under his pad level and is able to drive him back. Now, the problem with him being short is that he's easily moved. When you're 6'2", and you're not a big guy, it's hard to move some of these really big linemen. So it's a gift and a curse being short. In most instances, it's a curse for Jordan Hill. I think he's a really good player. You're going to get the most out of him. I like the pick in the 3rd round. I think it's a solid move by the Seattle Seahawks. I think this is a double in the 3rd round. Jordan Hill, defensive tackle out of Penn State. So as we go through the first 2 picks, we get a running back, which is not on your needs board at all, but we do get a defensive tackle in Jordan Hill. So we'll put a little cross through defensive tackle on our needs, or in this case, our want board. And so let's go to the 4th round. Pick 123, Chris Harper, wide receiver out of Kansas State. I like this pick. I like it a lot. I like it a lot because Chris Harper, to me, really good receiver. And he played on a predominantly run-heavy offense. So you really didn't get to see the skills as much as you should have. This is a talented receiver here. He's about 6'1", 6'2", very well built, can run. Again, not top end speed, but we're talking about a 4.5 40 guy. I don't really care about speed unless you're extremely slow. If you're extremely fast, that's great. But if you are a guy that has the fundamentals of the game down to a science, you know how to run routes, you know how to create separation, you know how to catch the football cleanly away from your body, you know how to get open, catch it, and make things happen once the football is in your hands, that's all I care about. I think sometimes we make too much about speed. I think we make too much out of a guy's speed. If you're fast, that's great. It's added value. I've seen many a fast receiver come into this league and flame out. See Troy Williamson in 2007. It happens all the time. See Darius Hayward-Bay with the Raiders, now in Indianapolis. Speed doesn't make you a great receiver. Being a great receiver makes you a great receiver. And I think Chris Harper can be a great receiver in this league. I thought that in his limited attempts at K-State, because of that offense that they ran with Klein at quarterback and having that option spread look, he didn't get the football as much as he should have. But he's a really good receiver. He's an athlete. He's big. He's physical. He's strong. He catches the football. Strong hands. Separates from defenders. Catches the football cleanly. Makes things happen after he catches the football. Very physical. I like Chris Harper. I like the pick at 123 in the fourth round. I think you got a lot of value here. It's a triple for me. Fourth round, pick 123. Chris Harper, wide receiver, Kansas State. Triple for me. I love the pick. I think the Seahawks really got a good receiver here to add to the mix. You look at the fifth round. Pick 137. You got this one from Detroit. You select Jesse Williams, defensive tackle out of Alabama. Right here, you got a second round talent in the fifth round. Strictly because of the medical. If not for the medical, this guy's gone in the fifth round. This guy's gone in the fourth round. This guy's gone in the third round. You got yourself some value here. Jesse Williams, defensive tackle, Alabama. We know what he was at college. This guy was an immovable force in the middle of that Alabama defense. He was in the backfield a whole heck of a lot. Tough guy. Was hurt a lot, but played through the injuries and gave it all he had and was still a force out there on the football field. So you're getting a tough guy. You're getting a big physical defensive tackle in Jesse Williams, who's athletic. We're talking about a guy well over 300 pounds, yet ran a 4.9 40 at the combine. So this guy is athletic. If not for the medical, he's gone. But instead, you get this guy in the fifth round. This is great value. I love the pick. Jesse Williams is going to come in and help bolster your defensive line. And I think you got a steal, frankly, in the fifth round. If this guy stays healthy, I like the pick. I like the move. It's another triple for me. Jesse Williams, defensive tackle, in the fifth round at pick 137 out of Alabama. You got a triple here. I like the move. So let's go back to the board. And we see that you got Harper at receiver. So we'll take that off the board. We see that you got another defensive lineman in Jesse Williams. We'll take that off the board. And so we move right along. The very next pick in the fifth round, after taking Williams, you got the next pick, 138 in the fifth round. And this is from Oakland. So you turn around and select Tyrone Simon, cornerback out of LSU. Now, Simon, to me, is the quintessential Seattle Seahawks corner. You look across the field at both of your corners. Browner at 6'4", Sherman at 6'3". Simon is 6'2", long and athletic. So right here, pick 138 in the fifth round, you drafted a Seattle Seahawks. Because Simon is an athletic corner that played at a big school who is long and lanky. Much like the corners you already have on your roster. Overlooked, because I think this is a very talented defender right here in Simon. Tyrone Simon, very talented. Overlooked, much like the corners you have on your team. Browner wasn't in this league. You found him over in the Canadian Football League. You had to salvage him from another league. You look at Sherman, overlooked, drafted in the second round. He felt like he wasn't given the credit that he deserved out of Stanford. Here's another guy that's going to have a chip on his shoulder. Really good defender out of LSU, drafted in the 5th round. He's got something to prove. You guys are probably going to get the best out of him. I love the pick. Another long, athletic corner to add to the mix and what you already have in a very athletic, probably the best secondary in the league. With your safeties and your cornerbacks as a group, I don't think there's a better secondary in the league. Add Tyrell Simon to the mix. To me, another triple for the Seattle Seahawks. So we move on to your next pick, and we're still in the 5th round. The Seahawks just decided to just compile 5th round selections. Hey, I don't have a first. How about I just take 3 5th round picks instead? So we go to pick 158 in the 5th round, and we go to the tight end out of Rice, Luke Wilson. To me, I like the pick because this is untapped potential, is what this is. I think the Seahawks looked at Wilson and they saw untapped potential. So they drafted him because we're talking about a 6'5" tight end, can run a 4.5 40, can catch, has really good hands, but lacked production at Rice, especially in the senior season, and doesn't block very well. So you're working on a project here with Luke Wilson. This is what I call a draft and stash proposition. You draft him and you stash him on your practice squad, or you draft him and he makes the roster, but he doesn't play. He just learns the nuances of the game. You guys have a couple of tight ends that are in front of him that are fine. So he doesn't have to play right away. He can learn the game, learn how to block sufficiently, learn how to run routes, learn leverage in the league, become a beast of a tight end because all the physical gifts are there. I just told you the man is 6'5", 245, 250, 255 pounds. So we're talking about a solidly built man that runs a 4.5 40. So athletically, there's nothing here that says he can't be a star in this league. The problem is he still has to learn how to play the tight end position at a high level. And that's why you draft him in the 5th round so no one else gets their paws on him. You draft him, you stash him, try to turn him into a star. And so he'll sit behind your current tight end, Zach Miller, and whoever else is out there, McCoy, whoever else you might have at the tight end position. He'll sit behind those guys. He'll learn. And when he's a finished product, he'll get on the field, and people won't know where this guy came from, and he can turn out to be a beast of a tight end for you. 5th round, pick 158, Luke Wilson, tight end out of Rice. Don't look for him in 2013. Come 2014, though, this guy could be a problem on the field, wreaking havoc for the Seattle Seahawks. So, to me, that's a double because I don't know what he's going to be. There's questions about his blocking ability. There's questions about production in his senior season. And so, I have questions. But the athletic gifts are there. We can't deny that. And so he's a double off of the athletic ability that he brings to the table. You can't teach 6'5". You can't teach 4.5 speed. So he's got that going for him. It's a double for Luke Wilson in the 5th round. So you look at the 6th round, pick 194, running back Spencer Ware out of LSU. So before we get into Ware, your 6th round selection, quickly want to go to the needs board. So you look at Tyrell Simon, one of your 5th round selections. He's a corner. We'll take him off our needs board or our want board, as we're talking about with the Seattle Seahawks, because to me, they don't have many needs. And we'll continue on with your draft now. So you look at Spencer Ware, and he's the running back out of LSU. I thought one of the funniest comments I heard over the weekend, and I always hear at least one when listening to guys like Mike Mayock and Charles Davis, and this one came from Charles Davis. He said of linebacker Kiko Alonso, who was drafted by the Buffalo Bills, this guy doesn't run to daylight. He runs to contact, meaning he's a very physical guy, sometimes to a fault, because he could run straight up a gap and go get to the running back or the ball carrier, but instead he's looking for someone to lay the lumber on, whether it be a guard, a center, a fullback. He's looking for contact. And that's how I feel about Spencer Ware. Big physical back out of LSU, top end speed, not there. So don't look for it. He's not going to outrun anyone in a foot race. But what he will do is out physical you. challenge your manhood. He'll come up to you, smack you right in your mouth. And so, to me, he's much like Kiko Alonso in Charles Davis's mind. He's looking for contact. Instead of running to daylight, he runs to flesh. He's looking to lay the lumber on someone. That's rare from a running back. Shades of Marion Barber, where he's just physical for no reason. I like Spencer Ware a lot. Think that he's going to bring another dimension. Will he make your team? That's the question. Because we talked about the running back position. You drafting Christine Michael in the second round as your first pick in this draft. Your backfield is loaded already. Because like I already said, I like Robert Turbin. We know what beast mode is. So that's 3 backs right there. Do you have space for a fourth? If Spencer Ware is playing special teams and he's on all of them and he's dominant, he can be on this roster. But if not, and I just talked about the physicality. So he probably doesn't have any problems tackling guys because he's a physical back. So I can see him making a roster, sure. But he's going to have to play special teams. He's going to have to contribute and be a big contributor on special teams. But I like Spencer Ware a lot. I think this pick is a double. If any of your backs were supposed to go down and this guy has to step in and play, he can do it right away. He's ready to go. He's powerful. He's strong. Not going to outrun anyone. But he knows his limitations and he isn't afraid to stick his helmet in someone's chest, even though that's against the rules now in the National Football League. However, he's not afraid to stick that face mask in there and make something happen. Spencer Ware, 6th round selection, 194, running back out of LSU, double in my book. We go to your 7th round selection, and you got 4 of them. You just loaded up on value at the end of the draft. And this is normally where you fill out your roster or guys don't even make your team. I look at 4 7th round picks, and I think maybe one of these guys has an outside shot at making the roster. Probably all 4 of these guys won't even make your team. But with Pete Carroll, you never, ever know. Because Pete Carroll isn't like everybody else. That's why I love Pete Carroll as a head coach. Because he just gets it. And what everyone else is doing, Pete Carroll isn't. If everyone's going to the right, Pete Carroll's going to the left, and happily doing so. So you just never know with these 7th round selections. If you're drafted by the Seattle Seahawks, as evident last year, you got a shot to make the roster. Just come in and compete, do the best that you can, and you might find yourself playing on Sundays for the Seattle Seahawks. So to these 7th round selections, I tell them, go in with a human-like work attitude, and you might end up being on this Seattle Seahawks 53-man roster. So we start with your first 7th round selection, 220, Ryan Seymour, and he's a guard out of Vanderbilt. This is a draft pick from the New Orleans Saints. To me, solid. He's okay. He's got deficiencies in his game, and so he's a big guy. We're talking about 6'5", 6'6", 320 pounds or so. This guy is big, and this guy is physical. So you look at 6'5", 330, 320 pounds, somewhere in that range, and this is depth. If he makes the roster, it's depth. But it's a long shot for me with Ryan Seymour. I just don't see the upside there that I'm looking for from a guy that you draft at the back half of the draft and are expecting to make the team. He's a practice squad player at best. Wasn't really in love with this move. I thought this could have been better spent on a backup quarterback or some kind of other position like linebacker. Wasn't really in love with this pick at 220. Seahawks took a guy that they're looking to develop in Ryan Seymour. I think that's a single. You look at your second 7th round selection at 231. Ty Powell, defensive end out of Harding. To me, this is more along the lines of the Seattle Seahawks and what they like to do on the defensive line. He's more in the mold of a Chris Clemens, 6'3", 255, 260 pounds, can run. This guy is very athletic. He played at a very small school, Harding. Never heard of him. Probably never heard of that school before. But he's athletic. And what I ask small school guys to do, dominate the competition. Okay, fine. You didn't play at a big Division I school. That's okay. You play at Harding. Who knows where that is? Who knows what conference that's in? I don't even know what division that's in. However, dominate the competition. You can't help who they put in front of you. Dominate the competition. And in his senior year, 8.5 sacks, 15 tackles for loss, 40 tackles on the season. That's a productive year. I like that production. I like the athleticism. I saw at the combine. Here's a guy that ran a 4.5 40 and then jumped out of his mind at the combine. So that's explosion right there. Anytime a guy can jump, you want to know why they test jumping at the combine, why they care about the broad jump, why they care about your vertical, because that shows explosion. If you can leap off of the ground, that shows explosion. Ty Powell has explosion. So there are some tools there to be worked with. So if you are the Seattle Seahawks, I like that pick. I like it much more than Ryan Seymour at 220. I think Ty Powell has the potential to make this roster. Of all these players at the back half of this draft, to me, he has the most opportunity to make this roster in the 7th round. 231st pick overall, defensive end out of Harding. Ty Powell is a double for me in this draft. You look at your 7th round selection. Again, this is the third of your 4 7th round selections. 241, Jarrett Smith. This is a compensatory pick, defensive tackle out of New Hampshire. Here's a guy that played on the defensive line in college at New Hampshire and was pretty good. I mean, this guy was always in the backfield. Big guy. He's a try-hard guy. You're going to get everything he's got. Is he the most athletic? No. Is he fast? No. Is he overly strong? No. So what is he? He's a try-hard guy. He's a guy that's going to give you every ounce of will that he has in his body. If he can make it happen, he will. And so, Jarrett Smith, a solid pick. He's a defensive tackle out of New Hampshire. Guess what the Seahawks are probably going to do with this guy? You know what I smell? I smell a J.R. Sweezy move here with Jarrett Smith. And for all of you Seahawks fans, you know exactly what I'm talking about. J.R. Sweezy, late round draft choice last year, changed from a defensive tackle to an offensive guard, made the transition very smoothly, made your roster as a late round pick. And so Jarrett Smith seems to be in that same mold. A J.R. Sweezy pick. And so Jarrett Smith is a guy that was drafted as a defensive tackle. Looks like he's going to be an offensive guard in this league. Pete Carroll loves doing this. And so I just love saying this. So I'll say it one more time. Jarrett Smith is probably going to be a J.R. Sweezy pick at 241. Defensive tackle out of New Hampshire. Probably going to be a guard. Much in the mold of a J.R. Sweezy. To me, it's a single because I don't know what's going on here. Is he going to make that transition as seamlessly as J.R. Sweezy did? I doubt it. We'll see. Single for me at the back half of this draft. You look at the very next pick in the 7th round, 242, Michael Bowie. It's another compensatory pick out of Northeastern Oklahoma State. He's an offensive tackle. Again, depth. Here's a guy you draft, you stash. You're going to put him on the practice squad if he makes your team at all. He's going to be on the practice squad. You're going to work with him because he's tall. We're talking about 6'5", 6'6", long arms, and then he's athletic. So he's got all the components of a solid tackle. That's why you draft a guy like this at the end of the draft. Put him on your practice squad. See if you can work with him. See if you can get some depth and value out of this guy, Michael Bowie. Again, single at the back half of this draft. So you look at your 4 7th round picks. Seymour is a guard that I think is a swing guard, swing tackle. You can put him at left, right guard, left, right tackle. He's a utility guy. Much like baseball, they have utility infielders. He's a utility offensive lineman. Probably wherever you need him, you put him. That's why you draft a guy like this that can play multiple positions on your offensive line. Maybe he makes the team. Maybe he doesn't. I don't see him making it, but we'll see. Ty Powell, I think, is a solid pick. I think that's the most likely of these 4 guys to make your roster. We'll see. Jarrett Smith is drafted much in the form of a J.R. Sweezy type of pick. Defensive tackle, probably going to move to guard. And then you look at Michael Bowie. He's a draft and stash prospect. You get him, you put him on your practice squad, and you work with him and see if you can have this guy pay dividends for you down the road. So you look at your whole entire draft, top to bottom. You look at Christian Michael, first pick, that's a triple. Jordan Hill, defensive tackle out of Penn State, that's a double. You look at Chris Harper, wide receiver out of K-State, triple. Jesse Williams, defensive tackle out of Alabama, triple. Tyrone Simon, cornerback out of LSU, triple. Luke Wilson, tight end out of Rice, double. Spencer Ware, running back out of LSU, double. Ryan Seymour, guard out of Vanderbilt, single. Ty Powell, defensive end out of Harding, double. Jarrett Smith, defensive tackle probably going to be moved to guard. Out of New Hampshire, single. And Michael Bowie, tackle out of northeastern Oklahoma State, single. You average all of those up, you get an aggregate score of a solid double for the Seattle Seahawks. Whew! That was 11 draft choices. That's a lot of picks. So they were busy during the draft. You addressed a couple of needs. You knocked out the offensive line. You did not get a linebacker or a quarterback. Not a big deal. Those are positions that you probably feel comfortable at already. You'll probably get some undrafted players to fill those voids on your football team. You just drafted players that made sense to you at the time. And so I have absolutely no problem with that whatsoever. I think you had a very productive draft. I love some of these picks and how they'll fit on your football team. You look at Kristen Michael. That's a great pick, especially at 62. That's great value. If you get this guy to keep his head focused on the football field, stay out of trouble off of it, you got yourself a steal at 62 in the second round. Chris Harper, to me, very underrated, very undervalued in the offense that he played in at K-State. You got yourself a really good football player here in the fourth round. Jesse Williams, ditto. Fifth round selection, probably second round talent. The medical scared off some teams. You get great value in the fifth round. Tyrone Simon, again, another one of these underrated corners that's extremely long and talented. Add him to the mix of 6'3" and 6'4". Here comes 6'2", right there. Another great pick by the Seahawks. Luke Wilson and Spencer Ware, to me, round out the really good picks in this draft for you. Luke Wilson is a project, but an athletic one. Will always take risks on athletic guys because you can't teach speed and you can't teach height. Luke Wilson has both of them. We'll see what he ends up being in the league. And Spencer Ware, another running back that may not make this team, but I tell you what, he's physical, and that always helps. So I love the draft. It's a solid double for the Seattle Seahawks. And I tell you what, San Francisco 49ers, you've been put on notice. You've been warned. Here comes the Seattle Seahawks. And that's going to do it for the Seattle Seahawks in the 2013 NFL Draft Wrap-Up.
Draft Zone.